All right, so in this portion of the lesson, we're going to go over this reading from Sustainable Measures, and they look at aspects of sustainable development and three ways to think about the interrelationship. So they go over first the three elements of a quality of life in a community. They're approaching this from a community sustainable development perspective. So if we want people in a community, and you can consider a community of any size, could be a small community, could be a state, or even a country. They divide it into these three aspects or these three elements, right? So all these things relate to the three E's. Okay, so good paying jobs and fighting poverty and homelessness for economy, natural environment, and then social. You can look at the social aspects of society, the quality of the neighborhoods, do people feel safe, how's the political participation, do people have good relationships with their neighbors and so forth. Okay, so it can be easy to fall into this trap of, we have the environmental part of a community, we have the society, and then we have economy, and there are these separate things, okay? So if we want to solve problems in, let's say, the economic realm, can we just treat them separately from the environmental and the society, okay? So there's some problems with this approach that they identify, and this is all from the reading. A really big one is that solutions can cause more problems, right? So like they give the example of if you create affordable housing, okay, to help address the sort of society and the economy side of things, but if you put these affordable housing outside in the outskirts of the city, then you create more problems with pollution and traffic and so forth. Okay, so you could go any number of examples of how solutions in one sphere cause problems in another. It also creates this sort of like us and them mentality. So it's like, hey, we got these green people over here, the tree huggers, and then you got the economic types, and that they're opposing each other. Okay, so it's generally not helpful to approach it that way. And also, they mentioned that you can promote short-term solutions to the detriment of long-term ones. Again, this is kind of speaks to systems thinking. You have to think about the interaction between these. So they propose that a better model is to look at the interaction of these three. So again, if you want to address one, you have to understand or recognize that the environment and the economy are related. The environment and society are related, and the economy and society are related. So all these are actually related, and that if you do this, you're considering the interactions between these spheres. And so you think about, okay, if I do change one thing in one sphere, the environmental side of things, how is that going to impact the economy and society? So it's really important to visualize these three spheres interacting. And just a couple of examples you think that we can think of. If you think about, like, from an economic addressing the economy, and you have these really great, hey, home values are going up, people are selling their homes, they're making money, but is that contributing to the homeless problem? So is that a societal problem that's the result of this? And this is a big issue out in like San Francisco and California in particular. As the home values rise, you're seeing an increase in homelessness. You could look at environmental laws. How are they impacting the economy? So it's important to consider the economic impact of environmental laws, right? So the idea here is that, even though, again, it's probably common sense, it's easy to fall into the trap of like, hey, I'm an environmental policy person, so I'm just going to deal with the environment and not consider what its impacts are on society and the economy. And that's just not a way to have a sustainable quality of life and quality of life improvement over time. Another benefit of this is that it can foster cooperation instead of fostering opposition. Right, so you think about like solar industry, for example. Started out as kind of an environmental thing, but now it's really clear that it's also good for jobs. So it's good for the economy. It's good for society as well, in a number of ways. And also can promote long-term solutions. Again, we're thinking of this. If you think this way, you're thinking in terms of systems and interactions, and it helps foster this sort of long-term thinking. But they actually say that this is great, but there's a better way to think of it. And I want to really point this out, and we'll also look at this in a future lesson. But I want you to press pause and think about why do they consider this the most accurate representation of the relationship between these three spheres. Okay, and so the idea here is that if the economy is actually a subset of society, right? So there are a lot of aspects of society that aren't economic. You think about, personal relationships. Some public areas don't actually, you don't have to pay to go see, right? So state parks, national parks, whatever. So there are aspects to society that are not enveloped within the economy. And further, there are a lot of aspects of the environment that is not taken over by society. Okay, so the society exists within the environment, okay, and then the economy exists within society. So if you think about the model here, they're still overlapping, right? They still all overlap. But more importantly, you consider that the environment ultimately provides everything for all three spheres, okay? And then we need to consider that we can't just treat the economy or society separate from the environment. Not only do they overlap, but we need to consider that everything that we need in our economy, the physical resources, it's ultimately, all of it comes from the natural environment. And we have to consider it that way. Okay? And so this is a really important way to think. And again, it may seem like it's common sense, but it's not how our economic system is currently structured. And it's not really how our society is currently structured. Okay? And so one of the implications, and again, this is from the reading, is that we need to ensure that our economy and society can continue to exist without destroying the natural environment on which we all depend. Okay, we need the environment to survive, so we need to structure our society and our economy so that that continues to happen. And another thing to consider is that an implication is that there are limits to resources, right? So we have a finite planet. We can't take resources forever. There are boundaries around the natural environment that we have to consider. Okay, so again, back to some of the earlier themes. We have to consider, are we using resources faster than can be renewed? Again, fundamental. And then are we enhancing the social and human capital upon which our economy depends? Our community depends, excuse me. Okay, and that's it for this one.